Have you ever noticed how exhausted your soul becomes when your mind is trying to control everything? You may lie down at night, close your eyes, and tell yourself that it is time to rest, yet your thoughts continue moving from one concern to another. You replay conversations that have already ended. You imagine difficulties that have not yet happened. You question the choices you made, the words you spoke, and the signs you may have missed. Your body is in bed, but your mind is still standing guard over a future it cannot see. Perhaps you are waiting for an answer. You may have prayed for healing, guidance, love, companionship, financial relief, or a new beginning. You may have whispered the same prayer so many times that you no longer know what else to say. Yet the situation remains unchanged, and the silence has begun to feel personal. You may wonder whether God heard you. You may wonder whether you are being punished, delayed, or forgotten. But what if the silence is not an absence? What if the space between your prayer and the answer is not empty? What if something is being prepared within you that cannot be rushed by fear or controlled by the mind? The mind wants a map before it begins the journey. It wants dates, guarantees, explanations, visible signs, and proof that everything will end well. It says, "Show me exactly how this will work, and then I will trust." The soul speaks in another way. It quietly says, "Trust, and you may begin to see what fear has kept hidden." Trusting God does not mean that you never feel uncertain. It does not mean pretending that pain is pleasant or forcing yourself to smile while your heart is breaking. Trust is not denial. It is a gentle willingness to stop treating uncertainty as evidence that you have been abandoned. It is the willingness to say, "I do not understand this moment, but I remain open to the possibility that love is still working here." There are seasons in life that resemble winter. The branches appear empty, the ground feels cold, and nothing visible suggests that new life is forming. If you judge the tree only by what you could see, you might believe that it had been forgotten. But beneath the ground, the roots are still alive. They are strengthening in darkness. They are gathering what they need. They are preparing for a season the branches cannot yet display. Your life may be in such a season now. An answer may not yet be visible, but that does not mean nothing is happening. An old identity may be loosening. A false attachment may be losing its hold. A disappointment may be teaching you where you placed your worth in something temporary. A delay may be protecting you from entering a door before your heart is ready to walk through it. The ego interprets uncertainty as danger because it believes safety comes from control. It tells you that if you think hard enough, plan carefully enough, please everyone, and predict every possible outcome, then perhaps you can prevent pain. The ego is not evil, it is frightened. It has spent years studying what could go wrong. It remembers rejection, disappointment, humiliation, abandonment, and loss. Whenever life becomes uncertain, it tries to protect you by repeating old strategies. It urges you to overthink, to chase, to defend yourself, to explain more, or to hold tightly to what may already be asking to be released. But the tighter you hold the river, the less you can feel yourself being carried by it. You were never meant to hold the river. You were meant to remember that you are part of its movement. There is a loving intelligence within life that opens seeds, guides birds across oceans, heals wounds, and brings morning after the longest night. You may call this intelligence God, Source, divine love, Spirit, or the presence within. The word you choose matters less than your willingness to become still enough to recognize that you are not separate from it. This presence is not located in some distant place, waiting for you to become worthy. It is moving through the breath, entering your body now. It is present in the space between two thoughts. It is felt in the moment you stop arguing with life and allow yourself to be exactly where you are. You may have spent years believing peace will come after your circumstances change. You tell yourself that you will rest when the relationship improves, when the answer arrives, when the debt is paid, when your health is restored, or when the future finally becomes clear. Yet each solved problem is eventually replaced by another uncertainty. If your peace depends entirely on external conditions, then your soul remains at the mercy of everything that changes. Inner peace begins when you stop asking the world to remove every cloud before you remember the sky. The clouds may be dark, they may move slowly, they may hide the light for a time, but the sky is not damaged by their presence. In the same way, fearful thoughts may pass through your mind without becoming the truth of who you are. You are not only the thought that says everything is falling apart, you are also the awareness noticing that thought. You are not only the fear moving through your body, you are also the loving presence capable of sitting beside that fear without allowing it to lead your life. This awareness is where rest begins. You do not have to fight the frightened part of yourself. You do not have to shame it for worrying or command it to become spiritual. You can meet it as you would meet a frightened child. You can listen to what it is trying to protect, thank it for its effort, and gently remind it that it does not have to carry tomorrow tonight. For one breath, you can release the future. For one moment, you can allow this moment to be enough. The ego resists this kind of trust because trust asks it to surrender the illusion of complete control. When life does not provide certainty, the ego begins creating stories. A delayed message becomes rejection. A closed door becomes failure. A change in someone's tone becomes proof that love is disappearing. A season of waiting becomes evidence that you have been forgotten. The event itself may be difficult, but the story the mind creates around it often causes the deeper suffering. Perhaps someone you love has become distant. Before you know what is truly happening, your mind searches for explanations. You replay every conversation and examine every word. You wonder what you did wrong, what you should have done differently, and how you can make the other person return to the version of themselves that made you feel safe. Fear may urge you to become more pleasing, more available, or more willing to ignore your own needs, because the ego believes love must be controlled in order to be kept. But love cannot be secured through fear. When you abandon your truth to prevent another person from leaving, you do not create genuine closeness. You create distance from yourself. The relationship may continue, but your soul becomes tired because you are performing peace rather than living it. Trust asks you to pause before obeying the fear. It invites you to feel the urge to chase, explain, or prove yourself without immediately turning that urge into action. You can ask, am I responding from love, or am I reacting from the fear of being abandoned? This question creates space, and in that space, the voice of your deeper self becomes easier to hear. The deeper self does not beg to be chosen. It does not force connection. It does not need to become smaller in order to be loved. It understands that a relationship aligned with truth cannot require you to disappear from your own life. Trusting God does not mean every person will remain. Sometimes the loving movement of life is a separation you never would have chosen. Sometimes a relationship ends not because you failed, but because the identity you carried into it can no longer accompany you into the next chapter. The ego sees only what has been taken away. The soul may eventually recognize what has been released. You may not recognize it immediately. Grief has its own sacred rhythm. There are moments when spiritual words cannot remove the pain, and they should not be used to silence it. You are allowed to miss someone. You are allowed to feel confused. You are allowed to mourn the future you imagined. Trust does not ask you to become numb. It asks you to remember that even in grief, something within you remains whole. The pain may move through you, but it is not the end of you. The loss may change your life, but it cannot separate you from the source of life. The ego also creates exhaustion through comparison. It looks at someone else's visible life and imagines that they have found the certainty you are missing. You see their relationship, success, confidence, purpose, or apparent happiness, and you begin to question your own path. But comparison asks you to judge your private journey through someone else's public moment. You see their branches, but not their roots. You see the arrival, but not the confusion that came before it. You see the smile, but not the nights when they also wondered whether they had been forgotten. The soul does not compare seasons. A tree in winter does not envy a tree in bloom. It rests in the wisdom of its own timing. It does not accuse itself of failure because its branches are bare. Perhaps your life is not asking you to move faster. Perhaps it is asking you to become quieter. Perhaps the delay is not preventing your life. Perhaps it is part of your life. Perhaps the unanswered prayer is deepening your relationship with the presence within you so that when the outer answer arrives, you will no longer ask it to provide the wholeness it was never meant to provide. There was once a woman who had spent many years working toward a position she believed would finally make her feel secure. She had sacrificed weekends, postponed relationships, ignored the exhaustion in her body, and told herself that once she received the promotion, everything would settle down. When the position became available, she prayed every morning for the opportunity. She imagined receiving the call. She planned what she would do with the additional income and how her family would finally see that her sacrifices had been worthwhile. The call never came. Someone else was chosen. At first, she felt humiliated. She believed God had ignored her prayer. For several weeks, she replayed the decision and searched for someone to blame. Then one morning, while sitting quietly before work, she felt the full weight of how tired she had become. For the first time, her prayer changed. Instead of saying, "God, give me the position," she said, "God, help me see what I am unable to see." Nothing dramatic happened. No voice spoke. The room did not fill with light. But in the stillness, she admitted something she had known for years. She no longer loved the life she was trying so hard to succeed in. The rejection had not created her unhappiness. It had revealed it. Over the following months, she began making small changes. She reduced the obligations that were destroying her health. She reconnected with people she had neglected. She began training in a field she had been afraid to explore because it seemed less impressive. A year later, she was doing work that gave her less status but more life. Looking back, she realized that her original prayer had not been ignored. It had been answered at a deeper level than the ego had requested. She asked for a position that would make her feel secure. Life led her toward a self that no longer needed a position to prove her worth. Sometimes the answer to your prayer does not arrive by giving the ego what it demands. Sometimes it arrives by freeing you from the belief that you need it. This is why control can become such a burden. You may believe that if you prepare for every outcome, you can prevent disappointment. Yet worry does not protect you from tomorrow. It removes you from today. Think of how many times you have emotionally lived through an imagined future that never arrived. Your mind rehearsed arguments, failures, illnesses, endings, and humiliations. Your body experienced the stress as though each event were already happening. Then life unfolded in another way, and you realized that much of your suffering came from fighting shadows. Preparation can be wise. There is love in caring for your responsibilities, making thoughtful plans, and responding to what is real. But there is a difference between preparation and obsession. Preparation acts and then rests. Obsession continues, thinking because it never believes enough has been done. Preparation responds to the present. Obsession attempts to control a future that does not yet exist. Trust begins when you recognize that the mind cannot think its way into complete safety. No amount of planning can remove every uncertainty from life. You were not created to manage the entire universe from inside your thoughts. There is great relief in admitting this. You can make the best choice available to you and release the outcome. You can speak honestly and allow another person to respond in their own way. You can plant a seed without digging it up every morning to check whether it has begun to grow. This is not carelessness. It is alignment. Intention and attachment are not the same. Intention is the seed you place into life. Attachment is the insistence that the seed must grow according to your schedule and produce the exact form you imagined. You can intend healing, love, abundance, peace, and meaningful work. You can nourish these intentions through your choices. But you cannot command the rain, force the season, or open the seed with your hands without damaging what is forming. Trust allows you to participate without trying to dominate. You may intend healing while accepting that healing will not always mean returning to who you were before the pain. You may intend love while releasing the belief that it must come through one particular person. You may intend purpose while remaining open to a path the mind did not predict. The ego often wants God to approve its plan. The soul becomes peaceful when it is willing to receive a larger one. This does not mean that every painful event was deliberately sent to teach you a lesson. It does not mean that loss, betrayal, or illness should be romanticized. It means that even within what you did not choose, love can still work. No experience has to become spiritually wasted. A closed door can reveal where you were forcing. A delay can expose your dependence on certainty. A conflict can show you where you are still afraid to speak honestly. A loss can lead you toward what cannot be taken away. Trusting God means believing that love can remain active even inside circumstances you would never have requested. As your need for control begins to soften, you may notice the identities you created in order to feel safe. Perhaps you became the strong one, the helpful one, the successful one, or the person who never caused trouble. These roles may have earned approval, but they may also have separated you from your true feelings. The strong person may be exhausted. The helpful person may quietly feel unseen. The successful person may be terrified of slowing down. The peaceful person may be carrying anger they have never allowed themselves to name. When an identity becomes a prison, the soul often begins whispering through discomfort. Old achievements stop satisfying you. Familiar roles become heavy. You feel restless and assume something is wrong when perhaps something honest is trying to emerge. You can observe the role without confusing it with your essence. You can say, I learned to become this person because it helped me feel safe. But this role is not the whole of who I am. Your true self existed before anyone praised you, rejected you, understood you, or misunderstood you. It does not become more sacred when admired or less sacred when criticized. The ego depends on judgment because judgment helps it create an identity. It says, I am better than this person, or I am worse than that person. Both thoughts create separation. Both send you outside yourself in search of a worth that can only be remembered within. This is why criticism can feel so painful. A single comment may awaken an old wound. Someone questions your choice, and suddenly you feel compelled to defend your entire existence. Awareness allows you to separate another person's opinion from your identity. You can consider whether their words contain something useful without giving them authority over your worth. You can allow misunderstanding to exist without making it your responsibility to correct every mind. There is freedom in no longer needing everyone to see you accurately. The ego says, I cannot rest until they understand me. The soul says, I can remain true even when they do not. This is especially important when you have confused people-pleasing with love. You may say yes while your body quietly says no. You may agree to carry burdens that do not belong to you. You may avoid honest conversations because you fear being called selfish, difficult, or unkind. You keep peace outside while losing it within. But true love does not require self-abandonment. A loving boundary is not a punishment. It is an honest recognition of what allows love to remain free of hidden resentment. When you say no with compassion, you are not rejecting another person. You are refusing to create a relationship built on fear. Trusting God includes trusting the quiet wisdom placed within you. Guidance does not always appear as a dramatic sign. It may arrive as a heaviness when something is no longer aligned. It may come as a sense of expansion when you speak the truth. It may be the quiet knowing that you need to rest, step away, forgive, ask for help, or begin again. The ego may argue because true guidance is not always convenient. It may ask you to disappoint someone, leave a familiar pattern, or move forward without external approval. Yet every time you honor what is true with love, you become less divided inside yourself. This inner unity is peace. You stop spending all your energy trying to become acceptable to the world. You begin living from the center rather than the surface. You stop asking, how do I appear? And begin asking, what is true and what would love do here? Fear may still arise when you choose honesty. It may appear when you stop chasing someone who cannot meet you. It may appear when you release a plan that once gave you a sense of control. Fear does not always mean you are moving in the wrong direction. Sometimes it is simply the feeling of leaving an old identity. The ocean does not become peaceful by eliminating every wave. Its depth remains still while the surface moves. Spiritual peace does not mean you will never feel anxious, sad, uncertain, or afraid. It means you no longer become completely identified with every emotion that appears. You notice the wave without forgetting the ocean. You can say, fear is present, but fear is not all that I am. You can say, uncertainty is here, but I remain connected to life. You can say, I do not know what comes next, but I will not abandon myself while I wait. This is how awareness loosens the grip of ego, not through force or judgment, but through seeing clearly enough that you no longer obey every thought the mind creates. The moment you can observe a thought, you are already more than the thought. The moment you can witness fear, space is opened around it. The moment you breathe before reacting, freedom has entered the room. From this space, forgiveness becomes possible. Forgiveness does not make the past acceptable. It releases you from carrying the past into every new moment. There may be someone whose actions still live in your mind, a parent who could not give you the love you needed, a partner who betrayed your trust, a friend who disappeared when you were hurting, or perhaps a version of yourself you still judge. You may look backward with the wisdom you have today and condemn the person you were for not knowing what you know now. But the earlier version of you was living with the awareness, fear, and resources available at that time. Forgiving yourself does not mean avoiding responsibility. It means refusing to make shame your permanent identity. You can acknowledge what happened, make amends where possible, receive the lesson, and stop using the past as a weapon against yourself. Imagine carrying a heavy stone because someone once placed it in your hands. At first, holding it may have felt like proof that what happened mattered. Over time, The weight became familiar. You began to believe it belonged to you. Forgiveness does not say the stone was never heavy. It recognizes that you no longer have to carry it. You may not be ready to release everything at once. Forgiveness can unfold slowly, like ice melting in early spring. You do not have to force warmth into a heart that still needs time. You can begin with willingness. You can quietly say, I am willing to become free from this pain. Sometimes forgiveness means releasing the hope that another person will finally understand what they did. The ego believes closure must come through an apology, explanation, or moment of recognition. But waiting for someone else to awaken can keep your peace dependent on their awareness. Your freedom does not require their permission. You can honor what happened, grieve what you did not receive, create boundaries, and still decide that the wound will not become the center of your identity. Surrender grows from this same willingness. Surrender does not mean giving up on your life. It means giving up the struggle against what you cannot control. You still act, speak, seek healing, make decisions, and care for what belongs to you. But you release the demand that every action produce the exact outcome you imagined. Trust is not the absence of action. It is action without panic. Panic says everything must be solved immediately. Trust says the next honest step is enough. You do not have to see the entire staircase. You only need enough presence to recognize the step beneath your feet. The river does not know every bend before reaching the ocean. It does not interpret each rock as evidence that it has lost its path. It moves around what cannot be moved and continues in the direction of its nature. Your life may be asking for that same gentleness. There are obstacles you do not need to conquer. You may only need to stop pushing against them. There are questions you do not need to answer today. You may only need to live honestly within them. There are people you do not need to change. You may only need to stop abandoning yourself in their presence. As your trust deepens, prayer may also begin to change. Prayer may become less about persuading God to arrange life according to your wishes and more about making yourself receptive to divine wisdom. Instead of asking only, please remove this difficulty, you may begin to ask, help me see this through the eyes of love. Instead of asking, when will the answer come, you may ask, how am I being prepared while I wait? Instead of asking, why has this happened to me, you may gently ask, how can I remain connected to peace within what has happened? These questions do not erase pain, they transform your relationship with it. You may discover that guidance often arrives as peace before it arrives as explanation. The mind may still have questions, but something deeper becomes quiet. You may not know where the path leads, yet you feel less resistance toward the next step. This stillness is not a guarantee that everything will unfold according to your preferences. It is the recognition that you will not be spiritually abandoned, whatever unfolds. Your deepest safety is not found in controlling every outcome. It is found in remembering that your true self remains connected to Source through every outcome. Fear says, I can be peaceful only if this person stays, this plan succeeds, this body remains strong, and this future unfolds as expected. Love says, even here, I am connected. Even in uncertainty, you are connected. Even in grief, you are connected. Even while beginning again, you are connected. This connection may not feel dramatic. It often appears through ordinary moments, sunlight moving across the floor, the sound of rain against a window, a stranger's kindness, a breath that suddenly becomes deeper, or the moment you stop fighting yourself. The sacred often enters through ordinary doors. When you become present, you recognize that life is not withholding itself from you. You are already inside it. You do not have to travel to a distant spiritual destination. The presence you seek is moving through your awareness now. This is why stillness can feel like coming home. In stillness, you are not performing, defending the past, or managing the future. You are simply here, and in that presence, you may remember what the fearful mind forgot. You were never separate. The love you were searching for was not absent. It was beneath the noise. The guidance you were requesting was not always an external answer. Sometimes it was the quiet strength that helped you continue without one. The peace you believed would arrive when life changed was waiting for you to stop resisting the life that was already here. As this understanding settles within you, gratitude begins to arise. Not as a demand to feel positive about everything, but as recognition that even now, life is supporting you in ways you may have overlooked. Your breath is here. Awareness is here. The ability to choose love again is here. Gratitude does not tell you that everything is perfect. It reminds you that everything is not empty. You may begin each morning with a few moments of stillness before reaching for the world. Place a hand over your heart and remember, I am here, God is here. This moment is enough for now. Some mornings you will feel peaceful. On other mornings, the mind will immediately begin listing its fears. Both experiences can be welcomed. The purpose of stillness is not to force the mind to become silent. It is to remember the awareness that can remain gentle even when thoughts are loud. During the day, notice when fear begins creating a story. A message is delayed, a plan changes, someone seems disappointed. The old pattern urges you to react, explain, chase, or assume the worst. Pause and ask, what do I truly know, and what has fear imagined? That one question can return you to the present. It reminds you that a thought is not always a fact and uncertainty is not always danger. At night, notice what you are still carrying. Perhaps it is anger toward someone, disappointment in yourself, or resentment toward life. You do not have to force yourself to release everything. You can simply say, I release what I can release today. I place the rest in God's hands. Some burdens leave gradually, a little today and a little tomorrow. The soul does not rush its healing. Trust is also practiced through small decisions. You speak honestly without controlling how another person responds. You set a boundary without explaining it endlessly. You take the next loving step without demanding proof of where it will lead. Each time you choose alignment instead of panic, you strengthen your relationship with your true self. When fear returns, do not interpret it as failure. Fear may simply be an old habit asking to be met with compassion. Return to your breath, return to this moment, and return to the quiet understanding that you are not walking through life alone. Perhaps trusting God is not one great decision made only once. Perhaps it is a gentle choice made many times throughout the day. It is the choice to release tomorrow when the mind tries to live there. It is the choice to forgive when resentment asks to become your home. It is the choice to listen within when the noise of the world becomes overwhelming. Over time, trust becomes less like something you are trying to achieve and more like something you are remembering. You remember that the river has always been carrying you. You remember that winter does not mean the tree has been abandoned. You remember that clouds can cover the sky without destroying it. You remember that silence can contain a presence deeper than words. Your life will continue to move through seasons. There will be beginnings, endings, moments of clarity, and times when the path disappears into mist. But you no longer have to lose yourself every time the outer world changes. You can remain rooted in the awareness that your deepest identity is not the frightened voice inside the mind. You are the presence that hears the voice. You are the love capable of meeting it. You are the life beneath every changing condition. Your soul finally rests, not because every question has been answered, but because it no longer needs every answer in order to trust. Before we close, consider what you may be ready to place into God's hands today. Perhaps it is a future you have tried to predict, a person you have tried to control, a prayer you fear has been forgotten, or a burden you have carried for so long that you no longer remember who you were without it. You may share that intention in the comments as a quiet act of release. And if these reflections help you return to peace, you are welcome to subscribe and return whenever you need a place to become still again. Now, let everything else become quiet. Take a slow breath and allow your shoulders to soften. You do not have to solve your entire life in this moment. You do not have to know exactly how the answer will arrive. You do not have to carry what was never yours to control. Say gently within yourself, I release the future. I release the need to understand everything. I release the belief that silence means I have been forgotten. Breathe again. Feel the life moving through you without your effort. Remember that the same intelligence that moves the seasons is present within your journey. What is meant to unfold does not require your fear in order to unfold. What is meant to leave cannot take your true self with it. What is meant to teach you will reveal its wisdom when you are ready to receive it. You are still held. You are still guided. You are still connected to the source from which you came. Even now, love is present. Even now, peace is possible. Even now, you are not alone. And when you remember this, even for one breath, your mind no longer has to control the whole journey. Your heart begins to soften. Your resistance begins to loosen. And your soul finally rests.